been described as the worst disaster to hit the southern hemisphere. Zimbabwe has been hit hard, lives have been lost, livelihoods have been destroyed, and we have a clear crisis in our nation. To talk about Cyclone Idai, I've invited the MDC Secretary for Local Government and Devolution, Honorable Cyclone Idai, and the MDC Secretary for Welfare, Honorable William Moshai. Welcome. So today on our current affairs desk, we sit down to talk about this crisis that has affected our nation. We want to understand, are there any lessons that we've learned? What is the current situation at the moment? So Honorable Idai, my first question comes to you. And you took a tour of the Chimanimani region and Chipinge region the last 2 days. What is it that you saw there?
Yvonne, the country is in deep mourning as a result of the happenings in Manicaland, specifically in Chimanimani, Chipinge, Bothero and Eben. Cyclone Idai has left a trail of destruction, total destruction. It has left people distressed. It has destroyed infrastructure such as schools, hospitals, bridges. The roads are impassable. It's just a very sad story. Homes have been submerged in water. People have died, 134 of them, as we understand now, and 100 more are missing. So it's a very sad day in Zimbabwe.
All right, Honorable Moshai, in terms of needs assessment of the area, like what Honorable Idai has talked about, bridges down, homes are submerged, etc. What is it that the people need right now?
First of all, I would like to express the MDC's condolences to the families that have suffered. The MDC stands in solidarity with the people that are suffering and the victims of Cyclone Idai. The trail of destruction is huge, and therefore the needs are huge. In terms of the needs, you have to classify them into two categories. There are current agent needs that we need, like right now, because people have been left homeless. There are people that have died. Engineer Idai has given us a number of 134, which is the recorded number at the moment. But this number keeps on moving because there are people that were covered due to the mudslide. There are people that are floating in rivers. There have been mass burials in order to take care of the dead. One of the things when we talk of the mass burials that we need are the coffins to make sure that the people get decent burials. In addition to that, homes have been destroyed, which therefore means we need tents for shelter, to provide shelter to the people. Secondly, there are people that have been injured, seriously injured, and some that have been injured to a lesser extent. We need medical supplies, we need doctors, we need to be able to take care of those people. We also need psychosocial support around the people that are suffering and the victims that have experienced this cycling. We need food, we need sanitary wear, we need diapers, we need clothes, we need utensils, we need everything, because the people have been left with nothing. We also have experienced this drought, this cyclone, in a situation where we already had a drought in this country, which therefore means the need for food would be great. But also, the people have been left with nothing except the clothes that they are putting on, which means basically we need support in terms of everything that a person needs to just start to live. The situation is desperate, and we thank Zimbabweans and all the people that are either inland or in the diaspora. We have stood up to the call for the support for the people that have experienced these very destructive, difficult, heart-rending effects of Cyclone Idai.
And it has been quite encouraging to see Zimbabweans huddling together in order to support the other people who have been affected. We have this crisis in Chimanimani and Chipinge, but we also have the crisis in the Masvingo provinces, Gutu, Nika, and Zaka. Have you been able to assess how much damage has been done in the other provinces?
Well, the cyclone has been very vicious. There are parts of Bikita, Zaka, and Gutu that have suffered from the effects of the cyclone. Similarly, as in the Eastern Highlands, bridges have been destroyed, homes have been destroyed, livestock has been killed as a result of the floods. So yeah, we've got the problem spread right in Masvingo, but I would admit that Chimanimani is the eye of the storm. Chimanimani challenge is much worse.
Was the nation prepared for such a disaster? Did we know?
Well, the question is the nation must always be prepared for eventuality of disasters, because you get cycles of disasters. Could be droughts, could be floods, could be disease. The nation must always be prepared. We are signatories to the Kyoto Protocol on disaster management, disaster preparedness management and mitigation. We should be able to foretell. We should look into the sky and say there are the early warning signs for a disaster. Fortunately for this particular one, Cyclone Idai, the whole world knew that Cyclone Idai would come in as a very vicious cyclone. They actually foretold even the path of the cyclone.
So what happened?
The preparedness, government preparedness or national preparedness for disaster in this particular case was very, very poor. The early warning signs were not responded to. So it's sad.
But who was supposed to respond to these early warning signs? Madam Shai, who was supposed to respond?
First of all, it is the government's responsibility to make sure that citizens are protected. The right to life is protected. Even in terms of strengthening livelihoods, it is the responsibility of the government. Therefore, given what Engineer Zale said, that there were early warning signs, we were foretold we should have had precautionary measures as well as preparedness measures in terms of saying what are we going to do. For example, we should have been able to evacuate people from the path of the cyclone. We should also have been able to say the path of the cyclone, particularly in areas like Chimanimani, is going to be this and this, and evacuate closed schools. Make sure that schools are closed and school children are not in school during this time. So that even if the effect of the cyclone was far less, at least we would have prepared the nation and at least moved people, particularly from low-lying areas to higher ground. That should have happened.
And we're told this has been one of the strongest cyclones to hit our nation in so many years. Now, it exposed a lot of infrastructural challenges in terms of the quality of our road network systems, our bridges, just the general, even in terms of houses in such regions. What's your comment about what we saw and going forward, what should be done?
Global warming is a reality. There are larger water bodies out there in the seas that will tend to affect the flow of the waters in the streams, in the rivers. Because of the heights in the oceans, you tend to slow down the drainage as a result of the rivers. So constantly, as a nation, we must review the infrastructure that we have. You know, the Umvumvumvu bridge, for example, was probably done during Ian Smith's era. and all that infrastructure, the road, etc. We have not deliberately assessed, reviewed this infrastructure and improve it for purposes of current exigencies as we talk of. So sadly, because of the economic performance, because of the just positive planning for infrastructural improvement, we face these challenges. When the cyclone rains come in, it's very heavy. When the droughts come, they are very heavy. So the nation has got a planning framework for these eventualities, but these are not actualized. In terms of the Kyoto protocol, you've got what is called disaster risk budgeting. So whether the disaster is there or not, you must provide for infrastructure for early warning systems so that you can tell to the dot. It's possible today to tell to the dot the path of danger. You should be able to tell to the dot the quantum of the rains, should it be rains, or the drought in the case of drought. So there is, technological advancement has gone so far as to be able to assist us to tell with precision what will happen in the event of disaster. And there has to be that willingness to use these tools that are available. There has to be that willingness to look at our civil protection unit, even convert it in our psyche to call it disaster management and just protection. Because now you're talking about preventive as well as reactive approaches. Whereas when you talk about civil protection, it's basically reactive. You need to be more proactive, budget for these eventualities, budget for early warning system, for telling mechanisms, budget to empower, train, capacitate the institutions for disaster management. On a yearly basis, whether there is a drought or not, whether there is disaster or not, the pocket for disaster management must be full all the time.
But do we have a culture of budgeting for such?
The theory is that it's always been reactive. You would then always end up approaching people with a begging bowl. Whether it's cholera, we react. Whether it's a drought, it's a reaction and begging bowl.
And is it because we are unable to plan for these things?
Our problem is that we are always reactive instead of being proactive. Because if you look, even if you analyze in terms of the budget analysis, we actually raised it that the allocation to the CPU is too little. It is meaningless.
At what point was this raised? Sorry.
When we were doing the first budget analysis, and then on the presentation of the budget itself by Professor Mutuli, we raised it and said the allocation to the CPU is very little. It won't meet the demands. But as a government, when it comes to issues of disaster, there has to be a point when we say to the people, you have to move. Or when we say to the people, this is high risk. Therefore, we are evacuating you as a safety measure because we have to protect lives. And if you look at one of the examples right now in Australia, there is a cyclone that is on its way. They have moved 2,000 people from the path of that particular cyclone so that they make sure they save lives. At least in terms of property, you can look around for it. You can look for around and try and support people. Like right now what Zimbabweans are doing, they are putting together resources to try and help the people that have been affected by this disaster to make sure that they move on. But we can't replace lives.
All right.
Yvonne, just adding to what Madam Mushina is saying, I think it's a question of trust. It's issues of trust. If you look at what happened in Chibwezi, for example, out of the token cost, that's about 5 or so years ago, maybe more. People were moved and promised that where they are going to, they will get facilities, they will get infrastructure done for them, and eventually they will send back to their original homes. Lo and behold, to date, these people are suffering cramped in Chingwizi there without any infrastructure, no schools, no clinics. So these are trust issues. Is it true that government is trying to push me to safety, or are they trying to cheat me out of my ancestral land? Then we must invest a lot of money in educating the communities of the possibilities of danger in their areas. Keep teaching the people so that they understand the dangers that they face.
So it should be an intentional and a deliberate effort by government to reach out to the people.
Absolutely.
What has the MDC done?
First of all, the MDC has stood in solidarity with the people that are suffering. We saw the leadership, President Nelson Chamisa, leading a team that went into Chimanimani and Chipinge to have first-hand information and knowledge around the devastation of Cyclone Idai. Secondly, it is one thing to stand in solidarity whilst you are in your house. President Chamisa and his team went down to the ground in Chimanimani, and we saw pictures of him participating in clearing the road with the people that were in Chimanimani there, to make sure that he experiences firsthand and stands in solidarity with the people that were suffering the effects of this devastating cyclone. But also the MDC has not just gone there and be in solidarity with the people. We are appealing for help. We are appealing for donations. But in addition, the MDC is also working with partners in terms of making sure that logistically, the things that have been gathered in terms of donations reach the intended victim. We are not just standing there. We are offering an alternative voice to say these are the things that need to be done. So that as a nation, we are prepared. We come up with mitigatory, efficient, timely, in real time intervention to make sure that the people that are affected see that the government is taking care of their needs and making sure that the little that is left is protected.
We as the MDC, we have spoken to all our urban councils and say to them, this is time of disaster, and in the spirit of one of our values, the value of solidarity, can you not look at pushing through some equipment and some resources in the Eastern Highlands to alleviate the problem? And I can tell you, by tomorrow there will be a lot of yellow equipment in Tare from our local authorities ready to go into Chipinge, Chimanimani, and parts of Mashingo to deal with issues of accessibility of certain points. We have spoken to the Integrated Planners Network, IPN. It's a network of urban and rural planners, and 500 of them, who are prepared to move into the Eastern Highlands and say our habitats should be planned like this, like that, like that. They are all prepared to do this for free.
So please do feel free to get in touch with us on our Facebook page at MDC Zimbabwe, on our Twitter handle MDC Zimbabwe as well, on our YouTube channel Chinjamaitiro. You can also send us WhatsApp messages on our WhatsApp number that is on the screen right now. We are here talking to Honorable Cyclone Idai, who is the MDC Secretary for Local Government, and we are also joined by Honorable William Shai, the MDC Secretary for Welfare. We're just talking about the lessons learned from Cyclone Idai and the effects, the devastating effect that it has had on our nation. Now, I come back to you, Honorable Shizai. Do you as a party and as an alternative voice have a disaster management policy?
Thank you very much. We do have very clear policy. Firstly, some of it I've already spoken to, issues of budgeting for disaster because that's certain. Issues of strengthening mechanism for terror disaster, issues of strengthening our local authorities so that they can act in the first instance. We believe that disaster management is not a central government issue per se, but it must be devolved. They would have taken the first few steps to deal with the disaster. So that's us, devolve the mechanism for disaster management, budget for them, plan for them. That's our policy. We have also asked our mayors through their mayors' Christmas cheer funds in consultation with their communities to see if they can take portions of their mayors' Christmas cheer funds into Chimanimani. And it's happening. The mayor of Beru has done, the mayor of Harare, the mayor of Rwanda. And we are saying through this disaster, yes, it's a disaster, but we are beginning to cause the totality of Zimbabweans to feel together, to come together in this time of need. And we are getting very positive response. The Chitumbwiza Town Council, for example, has just put in about 5,000 into the disaster fund. And we are pleased that subsequent steps to the conscientization visit are paying very well.
Now let's talk about resident reconstruction. How are people going to start again? They've lost everything. They are what they knew or how they knew to survive in this harsh economic climate in our country. They've been surviving on those things, and those things have been destroyed. Now, what is the national plan? What should the plan be in terms of reconstructing the lives of the people of this?
There are a lot of things that need to be put in place. First of all, we know that in terms of disaster management, there should be rehabilitation program. And that rehabilitation program is specifically meant to deal with issues like infrastructure, to deal with issues like buildings, around how are we going to make sure that the people whose homes have been destroyed are rehabilitated, they are rebuilt. But also, one of the key things that is important that Engineer Idai has raised is in terms of saying to ourselves, how are we going to construct houses and homes that are tailor-made to suit the disasters that are impending, that we know are going to be coming. Because, like Engineer Idai said, global warming is a reality. Therefore, we need to say to ourselves, if we are going to be constructing homes, houses for these people, we make sure that they are resilient, that they are structured in the right way. But also, we have to say to ourselves, do an assessment of the areas and say geologically, can people stay here? Or else we have to move them. But move them in a manner that is not similar to the way the people of Toke Mukose were moved, or to the way the people of Ada Transao were moved, where they were promised they were going to get structures, they were going to get houses. They didn't get the things that they were promised. And therefore people will not have the confidence to be moved. But we also need to build on the current awareness that Engineer Idai was talking about. Because given the devastation and the trail of destruction that we have seen due to Cyclone Idai, it is incumbent upon the current government to make sure that we go back to the people and say to them, given this disaster, this is the action plan that we're going to put in place. We follow through the action plan. We just talk about it. We follow through. There is so much international goodwill. There is so much regional goodwill. Zimbabweans by themselves are prepared to stand up to this particular challenge. They have responded beyond measure to the clarion call around supporting the victims of Cyclone Idai. We therefore need to come up with a plan that is implementable, that we follow through in terms of rehabilitation of schools, for example. Making sure that water is available. Making sure that hospitals are there. That needs to be done. But we need to do it right this time.
Talk about what the MDC is doing, and people have come out guns blazing, literally, saying the MDC is posturing and politicizing a purely humanitarian issue. What's your comment on that?
Look, the real issue here is a political issue. The humanitarian issue is just a consequence of bad governance, of sensitive leadership. So we must talk about it. This is the way to solve it.
As we come to a close, Honorable Idai, we are hearing, these are just information that is coming on social media, that the cyclone, the eye of the cyclone is changing direction. Do you have such information, and what are the recommendations?
Yeah, we believe there is that change in direction, and we want to, as a party, we want to interface more closely with the Department of
Meteorological
Services, so that we pick the real direction of from a scientific point of view, the real direction of the cyclone, the intensity, etc., so that we can activate our awareness teams in the relevant districts, so that indeed we could answer to the adage, once bitten, twice shy. We shouldn't get a repeat of Chimani anywhere else in this country, ever.
Honorable Shai, thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. Join us again as we talk more on these and other issues affecting our nation on our next program. Thank you so much, and God bless you.